training in?" Hans said. Gabor appeared to pause for thought. "Self-defense." That was too vague for Hans. "In what way?" he said. "I can show you." Gabor's body tensed, and the faint wheeze of his breathing came down a semitone to an F sharp, which made Hans inattentive. That was part of his curse. Over the course of those years, when the soundscape changed, he would compulsively analyze the notes in his surroundings. That was why he was not on his guard when Gabor grabbed hold of him. It was as if he had fallen into a trap. He was spun around with violent force and struck the ground, and for a few seconds he saw nothing. Then he sensed Gabor's eyes above him, replete and satisfied, as if they belonged to a predator that had gotten what it wanted. Then he was gone. Rekke lay there with a shooting pain in the back of his head, and only after the third or fourth attempt did he manage to get to his feet and stagger into the house. His hair was sticky and wet, and he stood in front of the bathtub on the ground floor for a long time, trying to stop the flow of blood. By the time he returned to the library, some 15 or 20 minutes had elapsed. Dr. Brandt, still at the desk, indicated with exaggerated gestures and a look of deep disappointment that Gabor had gone home. He never noticed that Rekke was injured and pale. Nor indeed did Rekke's mother. She was preoccupied the whole evening, searching for a couple of pieces of jewellery that had suddenly gone missing. Chapter 2. Police Constable Micaela Vargas from Husby had moved in with Professor Hans Rekke of Grevgatan in Stockholm's most refined neighbourhood, something which had gotten everyone around her all worked up and had set them to gossiping. But now she wanted out. Rekke was depressed and hopeless, and he barely emerged from the bedroom. As soon as he had pulled himself together just a little, she would head over there to pack up her stuff. But first of all, she wanted to bring to a close the case they had embarked upon. It was to do with a woman who had been declared dead, but who had possibly made an appearance in a recently taken holiday snap in Venice, and while Micaela didn't really believe in any of that, there was something about the story that titillated her. That was why she had come to the police station on Bergsgatan to meet Inspector Kai Lindros, who had investigated the incident almost 14 years earlier. But Kai Lindros was taking his time, which didn't surprise her. He had sounded recalcitrant and grumpy on the phone, and she was standing a little listlessly in reception on the ground floor staring out at the street. A truck drove by with a pack of screeching sixth-formers celebrating their graduation in the back. It was June 5th, 2004, a glorious summer's day, and she was on the brink of chucking it in and leaving when she heard a voice behind her. "My private investigator colleague, I presume?" She turned around and shook his hand. He was younger than she had imagined, barely 50, with big brown eyes and back-combed blonde hair. But he was also seedier. He looked at her as if it were 5 to 3 in the morning. She tugged her denim jacket closer to her body. "I'm grateful you agreed to see me," she said. "Clear Lidman's dead," Kai Lindros said. "Probably. But I still think this is somewhat interesting," she said, touching her inside pocket. "I promise to be brief." Inspector Lindros continued to eye her body. "You can be as brief as you like, but I still don't believe it." Micaela wished she had something to ram down his throat. "Maybe you could take a look at the picture before you make up your mind," she said, following him into the elevator. Of course, Kai Lindros was going to take a look at the photo, and it was obviously downright ridiculous to be bugged by the fact that the girl was so young and an immigrant to boot. On the other hand, it wasn't that easy to fend off one's prejudices, especially where the Lidman investigation was concerned. It was the gaping wound of his career, and there was most definitely something peculiar about the whole business. A beautiful, well-educated woman who had negotiated with business high-flyers for a living had disappeared without trace 14 years ago, only to turn up a few months later burned to a crisp in a petrol tanker crash in Spain. Of course, he had pondered it all 1,000 times since then. Then again, fuck it. That was all history, and it was a Friday afternoon. He really should be off home soon to get drunk.